She called the cops and screamed, "Arrest him." But I was standing on my own land. That was the moment I knew I wasn't dealing with just any neighbor. She was the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, even though my farm wasn't even part of it. A month earlier, I'd bought the old McKinley farm, a quiet stretch of land sitting just outside the HOA boundary line. It was run down, sure, but it was mine. I'd saved for years after leaving the army, wanting nothing more than peace, fresh air, and a place to grow vegetables. The farmhouse creaked with history, and the fence line clearly marked where the HOA's domain ended. Or so I thought. The first morning after moving in, a woman in a perfectly ironed polo shirt and a clipboard walked right onto my porch. She didn't even knock. "You'll need to pay your HOA dues before the 5th, she said flatly. Late payments mean fines, and unpaid fines mean eviction. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. "Ma'am, this isn't HOA property," I said. "The farm's outside your jurisdiction." "Check the map," her smile froze. "We've expanded our boundary," she replied sharply. "Everyone around here contributes." "You'll need to comply," I didn't argue. I just closed the door. The next day, I found a printed notice taped to my gate. "Final warning, non-compliance will result in eviction." No signature. No legal seal. Just a name scribbled in pen. Karen Blake, HOA president. I went to the county office that afternoon. The clerk, an older man who'd been there for decades, looked confused. "Son, this property's never been in any HOA. You're safe here. But if they're bothering you, document everything." That night, I installed 2 security cameras, one by the gate, one by the porch. The next morning, the notice was gone. Instead, there was a boot print on my door and a broken padlock on my barn. I walked to the fence line and saw Karen standing there with 2 men in reflective vests. "You can't build or modify anything here without HOA approval," she said. "We're giving you a final chance to sign the membership form." I clenched my jaw. "You don't own this land." One of her men smirked. "Lady says we do, so either you pay or you pack." That's when I noticed the small black camera pinned to Karen's shirt. She was recording everything, probably hoping to paint me as some aggressive trespasser. But she didn't know I had my own cameras rolling too. I didn't shout. I just smiled and said, "Go ahead. Keep talking." Later that night, I watched the footage. They hadn't just trespassed. They'd vandalized my fence, spray-painted HO property across the barn door, and even dumped garbage in my driveway. I could have called the police right away, but I wanted to see how far they'd go. I wanted proof. Real proof. 3 days later, Karen came back with a local officer I hadn't seen before. She pointed at me as if commanding an army. "There! That's the man refusing to comply with HOA law. He's occupying land without authorization." The officer looked unsure. "Ma'am, this isn't HOA territory." Karen's voice cracked with rage. "Then do your job and remove him." That's when I stepped forward and said quietly, "Officer, before you make a mistake, you might want to look at this." I handed him my phone, the video from my porch camera showing her breaking my lock and trespassing. He watched for a few seconds, then turned to her. "Ma'am, I think we need to talk somewhere else." Her face turned red as the sirens of her own lies echoed in silence. I just watched her leave, slowly realizing this was only the beginning. Because the next morning, something worse happened. An official-looking eviction notice nailed to my gate, this time stamped with a forged county seal, and that's when I knew. Someone inside the system was helping her. If someone tried to claim your private land using fake authority, would you fight back quietly or expose them publicly? Tell me in the comments, what would you do? That fake eviction notice stayed nailed to my gate for 2 days before I decided to act. I could have ripped it down, but I wanted every neighbor to see it. And they did. People slowed their cars, whispered, and stared. That's exactly what Karen wanted, to shame me publicly. But I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction. When I finally took the notice inside, I studied every detail. The county seal looked almost real, except for one thing. The date format was wrong. Whoever printed it didn't know how the county wrote official papers. That told me someone inside the HOA forged it, not a government office. That night I drove to town and met an old friend, Detective Harris. We served together overseas years ago before he joined law enforcement. I told him everything. How the HOA had been harassing me, how Karen forged documents, and how someone might be helping her from the inside. He leaned back and said quietly, "You're not the first. She's been doing this to older homeowners, single folks, anyone she thinks won't fight back. But forging county seals? That's serious. Keep collecting evidence. Don't confront her yet. The next morning, I noticed something new. A construction crew had started digging right near my fence. When I asked what they were doing, the foreman shrugged. New community pool. HOA approved. But this isn't HOA land, I said. He pulled out a paper. Got the permit right here. I looked closer, same fake county seal. Same format error. My blood boiled. I pulled out my phone and recorded everything. Later that day, I got a call from an unknown number. Mr. Dawson, this is Karen Blake. You're interfering with HOA development. If you don't remove those cameras, we'll press charges for harassment. I couldn't help but laugh. You mean the cameras that caught you trespassing? There was silence for a moment. Then she said, You're making a mistake. You don't know who I know. I replied calmly. You're right, Karen, but you don't know who I am either. That night, 2 black SUVs stopped outside my gate. 4 men in suits stepped out, flashing badges that didn't look like police. One of them said, We're here to inspect property lines for HOA expansion. I walked up to them slowly. Where's your county authorization? The man hesitated. Our paperwork's being processed. Then get off my land before I call the sheriff. They didn't move. One even smiled. You really want to play hardball, farmer? So I took a deep breath and stepped closer. Actually, yeah, I do. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my wallet, flipped it open to show a small silver badge. You're talking to a federal land investigator. Every word you just said is being recorded. Their smiles vanished. One of them cursed under his breath, then motioned the others to leave. Within a minute, the SUVs were gone. Karen had no idea who she was dealing with. For years after leaving the Army, I'd taken a quiet job with a federal land protection unit, handling property disputes and fraud cases. I wanted a peaceful life, but I'd kept my credentials active. Now that decision was about to save me. The next day, I contacted Harris again and told him what happened. He said, Good, let them dig their own grave. When you've got enough proof, we'll move. By evening, the construction crew was still working near my fence. I set up new cameras, hidden ones, facing every corner of my land. At midnight, I caught something unbelievable on the feed. 2 of Karen's men were sneaking around my barn, cutting through the side fence and pouring something into the soil. I went outside quietly, camera in hand, and caught them red-handed. When my flashlight hit their faces, they froze. Drop it, I said calmly. Whatever you're doing, stop. One of them muttered. Karen said to mark the expansion zone. With chemicals? I asked, You trying to kill my crops now? They didn't answer. They just ran. The next morning, my grass was dying in strange square patches. They'd actually poisoned part of my land to fake a boundary. That was their trick, destroy and claim. That's when I realized this wasn't about dues anymore. Karen wanted my entire farm, and she was willing to break every law in the book to get it. But what she didn't know was, I'd already sent every video, document, and forged notice to a private legal investigator network I worked with years ago. The storm was coming. And this time, I wasn't the one who'd be evicted. If someone powerful tried to take everything you owned, would you go silent or gather proof until the whole world saw the truth? Comment what you'd do. The morning after I caught those men poisoning my land, I knew it was time to strike back. Karen's crew thought I was just a farmer, too quiet, too harmless. They had no idea I'd already turned everything over to Harris and the federal network I once worked with. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I went about my day like nothing happened, fixing fences and watering what was left of my garden. But every move I made was recorded. Every angle of my farm now had a camera, all feeding into a secure cloud system. By evening, Karen showed up again, this time with 2 board members and a local reporter. She wanted a public scene. She waved a folder at me. We've decided to enforce immediate eviction. You're illegally occupying HOA property. I smiled. Is that so? The reporter's camera turned toward me, expecting another angry homeowner meltdown, but I stayed calm. Would you like to see something interesting? I pulled out my phone and played the footage. Karen's men sneaking into my land, dumping poison, hammering fake notices. The reporter's eyes widened. Karen's face went pale. Turn that off, she shouted. The reporter refused. Is this real footage? I nodded. Date stamped, GPS verified, and already sent to the sheriff's office. Karen turned around to leave, but it was too late. 2 sheriff cars were already pulling up the dirt road. Harris stepped out, badge gleaming under the sun. "Karen Blake," he said firmly. "You're under arrest for property damage, forgery, and criminal trespass." The board members froze. One whispered, "You said we had permits." Karen tried to walk away, but Harris grabbed her wrist gently. "You've done enough." As they cuffed her, she looked back at me, eyes full of disbelief. "You set me up." I shook my head. "No, Karen, you set yourself up." The neighbors who once whispered behind curtains now stood in silence, watching their queen being taken away. But even then, I knew this fight wasn't over. Someone else helped her forge those papers, and I was going to find out who. 2 weeks later, I received a thick envelope from the county attorney's office. Inside were copies of every fake permit and eviction letter Karen had filed. Most of them had come from one office, the same department responsible for zoning approvals. I took the file straight to Harris. He looked through it, frowning. "That's big. Looks like she had a friend downtown helping her push false expansions." "We'll dig." Days later, the news broke. A full-blown investigation revealed a small group of officials working with the HOA to buy out rural land for development, cheaply, through fake paperwork and threats. My case exposed everything. Karen was sentenced for forgery and property tampering. The officials involved were fired and investigated. The HOA board dissolved under pressure. When the dust settled, I walked to my porch one evening, the sun dipping behind the old barn. The air finally felt calm again. I planted new seeds where the grass had died, and this time they grew stronger than before. A local journalist came by to film a final interview. "Mr. Dawson, how does it feel to win?" she asked. I smiled softly. "It's not about winning. It's about keeping what's rightfully yours and standing up when no one else will." She paused. "Do you think HOA power goes too far sometimes?" I nodded. "Power's fine until it forgets who it's meant to serve." As she packed her camera, I looked toward the fence where it all started. My land was peaceful again, but my story had gone viral. Thousands online messaged me, sharing their own HOA nightmares. Maybe that's why I didn't sell the farm afterward. I turned it into something else, a retreat for veterans, people like me who just wanted a place free from control, noise, and fake authority. I built a small wooden sign at the gate. It said, "Freedom Acres, no HOA allowed." And every time I see it, I smile, because this land, my land, finally feels like home. If you were forced to fight for your peace, would you walk away? Or would you defend it no matter how powerful your enemy seemed? Comment your thoughts below.